Yeah, Coach Kia. What up? Talking about that good money. What we talking about? We talking about philanthropy. Coach Kia Kroon playing A, B, and a C. It's no fantasy, she can make it reality. Best in the field like a first string athlete. Fundraising and marketing, she get tactical. Tackle your issues with a playbook so your cash can grow. She can show you just what to do. Coach Kia Kroon, when she touch down, it's a W. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. You an all-star, show me how the game go, 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 go.
How you doing out there? How you doing out there? Welcome to another installment, y'all, of Winning Wednesdays on the Fundraising and Marketing Playbook, brought to you by Bonterra and Kia Kroon Fundraising and Philanthropy, Inc. I just want to share with you that my partner, Bonterra, is a social goods software company dedicated to powering those who power social impact with best-in-class case management, corporate social responsibility, fundraising engagement solutions, and of course, Kia Kroon Fundraising and Philanthropy, a Black woman-owned fundraising firm where our motto is inclusive is as inclusive does. There you have it. Y'all, I am so excited. Okay, I'm excited to bring you one of my favorite people for a conversation that I field a fair amount of inquiries about, having raised the kind of money that I've raised, nearly $500 million for organizations run by and serving people of color over the last 2 decades. I get a considerable amount of inquiries around corporate partnerships. And I got to tell you, it's an art. It requires skill and strategy. And we're going to get into all of that. It's my pleasure to bring you one of my favorite folks, a highly sought after revenue strategist for mission-driven organizations. So if you're not mission-driven, I don't think there's much more to talk about. She stands on that. We're all about impact here. Ain't that right, Gail?
That's right.
It's my pleasure to present Gail Bauer, founder and president of Bauer Consulting. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have a great conversation today.
Listen, I'm going to be honest with the good folks out there listening. I have been doing this for 20 some odd years, 22 years. And I have not, and I've come across a lot of fundraisers, a lot of consultants, a lot of strategists. And this is one of the baddest here. Okay. When it comes to corporate strategy, because I mean, let's be real, there's a lot of people that claim to do this kind of work, but it really requires some pragmatism, strategy, among other things. If you want to get those gifts that, you can't jingle a few coins, you want the checks that fold and the big, we like to call them the 5 and 6 and beyond figure gifts. You want to have a strategist. So listen, I've gotten on my soapbox and talked enough. Want to welcome you here. And I got one question for you, Gail.
Go ahead.
You're on the mic. What's the play?
The play today is how to collaborate with corporate partners and win.
And win big. Just win, baby. That's our motto here. So let's get into this, Gail. I know that we only have, 25 or so minutes, so we're going to share as much as we can. I want to make sure that you, before we blow out of here, though, you share your good resources and how folks can reach you, because this is big, what we're talking about. So I want to start with one question. Is this something that organizations of all sizes can accomplish, or do you need to be like the big fish to make this happen? That's a question that I get.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think that most nonprofit organizations and associations, and even other producers of events that are for profit, have a lot of potential for corporate sponsorship. The caveat I'll say, and this may be sad news for some group, and I'll tell you why. It is not the best form of revenue for organizations that are just starting up, that are in a startup phase. And the reason why is that corporate sponsorship in particular is a marketing avenue for corporations. And therefore you have to have a pretty not sophisticated, but sophisticated is better than unsophisticated, but you have to have a marketing operation. So organizations that are still in a startup phase often don't have, that kind of robust marketing operation. They don't have a mailing list. They don't have an audience or a marketing strategy. So it's best to get that up and running, and then you'll be able to compete at a higher level.
Great. So I'm hearing you say there's some degree of resilience that or capacity. Although I don't like to use that word. I was taught by a good Judy that when working with organizations run by and serving communities of color, capacity building is one of those pejorative terms that we're not really a fan of. So I say resilience. But there are some houses you got to, as they say in the Black church, which I'm a member of, right? You got to have your house in order a little bit.
Yes.
In other words, you got to have your house in order. And, we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. So let's run this play. Collaborating with a corporate entity, right? There's marketing and fulfillment associated with that. But where does one start who wants to endeavor to, forge or build a corporate partnership strategy?
Right. Well, the best way to think about this is, as you said, get your house in order. And as part of getting your house in order, you really want to be thoughtful about what the opportunities are that you have for a collaboration. Now, there's a whole wide range of ways that corporations and nonprofit organizations can collaborate, ranging from the philanthropic side of the house, like a gift or a grant or employee giving, volunteerism. All of that is on the philanthropic side of the house. And on the other side of the house is exchange, or the other side of a continuum, it's exchange of value. So that you're thinking more of fees for service and corporate sponsorship, cause marketing. Those types of practices tend to be at that end of the scale. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is that nonprofits dump all their eggs in the gold, silver, and bronze basket. And then they wind up a little disappointed because, as you said earlier, they have change in their pocket, not foldable bills.
They got to change the jingles.
Change the jingles.
They're getting, and let me explain a little bit what I mean by that, because I'm a fundraiser. I've been in the trenches. There are people that are watching this that are in the trenches, and it's not, and while we can share a laugh, it's really not a laughing matter when you're in the trenches and trying to resource organizations that provide a lifeline to kids, senior citizens, people who are formerly incarcerated and everything. So I don't want to make light of that. But what I do want to say is I've been guilty of it early in my career, wanting to hit a home run because I had a supervisor and, all of these metrics that were kind of on my back or on my shoulders. And what did I do? I went and engaged with companies that were given arguably the kind of cash that jingles when you look at the big picture of what they really have the capacity to give. What am I talking about? Those $5,000 gifts, those $2,500 gifts. I'm not forsaking those gifts, but what you and I are talking about is well thought out collaborative partnerships that add value for both parties,
Correct.
that advance imperatives, marketing and programming imperatives for both parties, that doesn't just lean corporate and compromise the constitution of the organization and its values. No, this is a mutual beneficial partnership that usually has a 5-figure gift, 6-figure potential, at even initial request, right?
Correct. Yep, that's what we're talking about. Because the thing is, it takes just as much time to pursue a $2,500 gift as a $25,000 gift. And so nonprofit fundraisers or anyone really generating revenue, you only have so much time and so much bandwidth in your life. And you want to really focus on partnerships that can be really meaningful for both parties. And, if it has a higher fee attached to it, then you can spend more time with that client as opposed to being on a hamster wheel trying to, gain a lot more sponsors. And
Absolutely.
interestingly, when an organization has a more generic approach to their sponsorship, what I call gold, silver, and bronze packages, sometimes it has different names, but it's very generic. It's a fine way to start. I'm not a fan, but it's a fine way to start. And it's when, because a lot of times organizations have, a single person responsible for fundraising, and they've got a lot of things going on throughout the year, producing the event, doing the annual appeal, selling sponsorship, working with the board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a lot of different things. And so it's an okay way to start, but you don't want to get stuck there. And what I've noticed in my practice is that when organizations bring me in to help them move beyond those generic sponsorship packages, most sponsors just go right to the lowest level sponsorship, whether it's $1,000 or $2,500. And then what happens is for the event to be profitable, they have to get lots more. You need, I don't know, whatever,
40, 30, yeah.
$2,500 sponsorships. And what happens is, and I could go off on a soapbox and I don't want to, but what happens is when you have that many sponsors, nobody really stands out. And so you diminish the value of it by having to have that many. But if you have fewer that are really invested in big ways, in ways, as you said, is mutually beneficial, and beneficial also for your audiences or your constituents or whoever you're serving, then you have something really much more valuable for all parties. And it really has to be for all parties.
This is good. This is really, really rich, Gail, because what we want the good people out here listening, and we've got some questions on the line, and shout out to Ann Murphy. Hey, Ann. Hey, Joie. Hey, I hope the baby is doing well. I want to see some pictures now. I might need to go to your IG or something, but congrats. We've got a new mommy on the line.
Nice.
Being social and lost my train of thought. Oh, I got it back, y'all. I got it back, Gail. What happens is I have seen organizations do like you just described, and just, put this sponsor packet, this gold and bronze, silver sponsor packet in front of as many people as they can in a highly transactional fashion. They're not turning down nothing but their collar, right? When in actuality, like you said, it takes just as much effort and work. And if an organization takes the time to clarify very appealing opportunities that enable a corporate entity to engage with a targeted demographic that they consider valuable, right? And I want you to talk about, your Mercedes example, for instance. That was a great example. If you want to talk about that, of, moving from something that's transactional to something that is, a more value add for the corporate entity that they're willing to pay the bigger ticket price for. A couple of quick questions, Gail.
Sure.
Somebody is saying individual or corporate, and we really want to hunker down on corporate because, we receive so many inquiries around that. But in a lot of cases, I mean, I've had individuals who wanted to support events or even, and it doesn't even always have to be an event. It can be an initiative, for instance, like, when I worked with the National Society of Black Engineers, we had events that we would engage corporate around, and we're talking 6 and 7 figure gifts and engagements, but we also had learning programs, out of school education programs. It wasn't always necessarily event. So I want to get to Joy's question about what might a non-generic sponsor packet look like. I know you're going to get there, Gail. I want to turn this back over to you because I know you're going to get there and talk a little bit about what does this look like if we're not doing gold, bronze, and silver. Well, what are we doing?
Good question. Right. So you have this whole continuum of all these different ways to get involved with and start collaborating with the corporation. Let's say, Joy, that what you're really focused on is an event. What you want to do is think about all the activities at your event, all the different ways that, as I always recommend to clients, that sponsors could hang their hat on a component of the event itself. So I came, before I was consulting, I came from the festival world. I produced very large scale music festivals like the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, the Newport Jazz, Newport Folk Festivals, the Essence Music Festival.
I've been at all of them. So I know the work that goes behind those. I love a good music festival.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I do. I remember that.
Love a good festival.
Yeah. So, so all of, now obviously these are very large scale events, but the same principle applies to a smaller event. You have different components. So if you, at a festival, we have different stages, or we can create an official category of a product or an industry category that could be the official product or service of the festival. You could do the same thing with a gala or with a conference. So at a conference, you have lots of different meeting spaces. They can all have naming rights. You could have, category sponsorships for the name, for the stages or for the, main ballroom. You can have hospitality areas. There are lots. So you have to take a look at all the different components of your festival and see what could a sponsor hang its hat on, and kind of start to own that through naming rights, or through official category, or just be a participant at the event. Sponsorship is really a marketing activity for
Absolutely.
a corporation, and one of the hallmark characteristics of sponsorship as a marketing vehicle is that it's experiential. It allows the sponsor and your customer at your event, or it could be at your program, through your program, or through an initiative or campaign, to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart experience with that company's brand or a representative of the brand. So start thinking about it in that way, and then it starts to be more meaningful. And I like to say that corporate sponsorship is the ultimate social medium.
Yes, and I love this, and I'm so glad we're doing this because I really want more folks to really get into this, right? And get out of that orientation of, just kind of spreading the wealth and marketing those lower dollar. I don't want to forsake folks. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we get too big for our britches and, get all uppity about it. But we're talking about a really sustainable way of doing this. And here's the kicker. I like that kicker, that play on words for the foot. I love it. I love it. I
Got
love
it.
it. Right. Just roll. Look, just roll with it. Just roll with me. The kicker is this: when this is done right, when you were working at the festivals and you provided these rich experiences where corporate entities had their namesake, for instance, if we're talking about the Bonterra, I mean, what could we offer? The Bonterra VIP experience at a festival. Guess what? Bonterra's folks are going to be out there, right? The targeted audience is going to be out there. When this goes well and goes off without a hitch, you can bet your bottom dollar a company that has a great experience, that really feels like they've received, that ROI and enjoys working with you, they will come back year over year. Whereas if you expend all of this effort into, getting the $1,000, the $2,500, even the $5,000 sponsors, and they don't get that great user experience and notoriety, they're more transactional and less likely to re-up year over year, right? Provide them with a souped up, rich experience. You got them. You had them at hello. So what you're sharing is really, really valuable. And I just want people, we want people to win. We
Yes.
really, really do.
Yes. And to your point about not wanting to, diminish those $1,000 and $2,500 or $5,000 gifts, all of this is relative. So a 25, a 5-digit or a 6-figure sponsorship may be out of the realm for a very small organization,
Yes.
very small organization that has a smaller service area. Could go to, for them, a $5,000 sponsorship could be meaningful, and they can work with a lot of the small businesses in their community.
Absolutely.
Versus, to me, like the Olympics is one of the most, that's one of the biggest events that I can think of. And so they're working with global partners. So it's all relative, but the process is the same. The way that you think about this is the same. And if you focus on helping your clients gain value from the experience of working with you, as you said, and connect with your audiences in a way that's meaningful for your audiences and for you, so it has to be a win-win-win, then those dollars can flow in. And like you said, the goal is to really have long-term relationships. You'll take the money if it's just 1 year, because that might be what their budget is for, might be a new product launch. But but you really want to work with sponsors that come in, and you can develop meaningful partnerships that grow and evolve over the course of time.
So I'm going to put myself out here as an example, right? 2 quick examples. And I know you'll share your expertise and some feedback. I was employed years ago. Ooh, a long time ago. I don't even want to say how long, but I was working in the Bay Area with a community-based soup kitchen and homeless assistance organization called the Greater Richmond Interfaith Program. The organization, or the community, let me put it this way. The community was very rich with small and medium-sized businesses, and had a few corporate behemoths in the community, right, that did not have the best reputation in these streets. Okay. I mean, this was back when people were doing the Occupy protests, where, you'd go to work, and if you were an enemy of the state, as far as the community was concerned, you could walk out of your office after you've clocked out and have people with tents and umbrellas camped out protesting your organization for corporate harms, right? For environmental injustice, for just being what they consider to be a poor neighbor, not being a good neighbor. So there was a petroleum entity that was in that community that I partnered with, right? Again, relatively small organization, but had a mighty impact in the community, right? As a homeless services organization. The partnership that I structured, it was not, a initial 6-figure investment from that corporate entity. I think that we started with a $25,000 investment from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did that buy them? This was many, many years ago. And this was where I had to start, because I want to demonstrate that there's some building blocks kind of associated with this in my experience. And it really takes doing it to understand, and it gets better with time as you do it, the more you do it, right?
Right.
But we had to jump off the porch and get out there. So I sold a $25,000 presenting sponsorship to this petroleum behemoth for a community walkathon, right? So they were the title sponsor, and they had a booth, they had swag, they had their employees out there shaking hands, hugging folks, just networking and engaging to show that they very much wanted to be a part of this community and be a good neighbor, right? As time went on, that partnership, and I'm not even going to say it took 3, 4, 5 years, became $100,000 title sponsorship. And I was able to leverage their gift and not gift, because I want to be really, really careful. This was not a gift, right? This
Right.
is more of we're talking about a quid pro quo partnership, right? So to not only did I build a corporate partnership strategy that afforded them marketing recognition, speaking opportunities where they could speak to an audience of some, 5, 10,000 people. It grew to 15,000 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were other experiences where they were able to engage with the youth in the community, and, the senior citizens, and do things like, blood pressure checks and things of that nature, right? We were providing an experience and an opportunity for them to engage with their demographic that they wanted to win over. I mean,
Right.
let's just be clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that $25,000 title sponsorship quickly became that $100,000 title sponsorship with, leveraged relationships. I was able to leverage their social currency, right? And attract other corporations that they did business with to come in at smaller partnership levels. Because, of course, this petroleum behemoth was the big kid on the block. They were top billing, right? And
Right.
everybody else had to fall below them, but it was for the good of the order. So you're looking at that partnership with that entity quickly matured or multiplied from an initial $25,000 title sponsorship to a $100,000 sponsorship that generated an additional few $100,000 in leverage partnerships from other entities. So I hope that makes sense, Gail. If I'm, you help me out here a little, because I know the nomenclature, and I don't want this to seem like pie in the sky and difficult stuff for the people on the line or viewers watching the replay.
Yeah, right. No, I think what you did is just perfect. And it, in the beginning of our discussion today, you talked about the fact that there is a little bit of art to this. There's a little bit of art and a little bit of science to this. And there is also a little bit of, entrepreneurialism or opportunism. And you caught right onto that. You saw an opportunity, and you saw an opportunity to create this win-win-win. And it moved slowly till you built trust, and you delivered, and kept building trust and building that relationship. And obviously both parties continued to see it as a good opportunity. And I imagine that your audiences, or your community, also started to value. I'm sure that was a little bit of a slower start, because if there had been so much distrust and there was protesting and things like that, That
It
might
was
have been,
going down.
yeah, that might have been taken a little bit more time than you and the partner, but eventually, hopefully it turns some things around. And just one note on that, that people should be mindful of is that when you are, you took a calculated risk by going to a partner that didn't have such a great reputation in your community, and that's the calculated risk. So
Absolutely.
on one side of the risk is you had to weigh whether this was a relationship, this was a company that really did want to do well, but they kind of lost their game, or whether it was a company that, holy moly, this is not good. Like they're really,
Yes. Talk about it.
yeah. So a company
Yes.
that it's really not, like they're not mission driven, or they don't really care about their community, or they're just going to pollute no matter what, or whatever. If it's not a company that, if they're a scandalous company, let's just call it that. If they're a really scandalous company, then, or it's a company that is really malaligned with your mission, then you want to be careful about that. And that's something that, as part of your strategy, you can talk internally to make decisions about the kinds of companies that you will partner with and the kinds that you won't. Now, obviously, you can always make exceptions, but generally, if you're a children's organization around healthy food, you may not want to partner with candy makers or
Right, right,
soft
right. Or
drink
tobacco, the
Yeah,
tobacco company.
exactly.
Yeah. No,
Right,
you're absolutely right. And that was not just my decision at the time. I think
right,
that my role was a director of development. And I'm glad you mentioned that. It was determined that this was a party that we very much wanted and needed to work with, right? And I want to believe, well, I don't want to believe, I'm certain at that time that my executive director, he was a wonderful man named Art Hatchett. Um, Art felt good about this company and what it was endeavoring to do, right? In the spirit of, because at the end of the day, we were a black led organization fighting systemic inequities impacting black people in the city of Richmond, and fighting what really is rooted in generational poverty, people being homeless and losing their footing and not being able to afford market rate rent in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm not going to do it.
right.
Y'all get the picture, right? So it was determined, it was vetted, and it was determined that this was an entity that we wanted to partner with. When we rate the cost benefit analysis, it proved to be a partnership that would yield a fruitful return, and it did. And as time went on, the community really did turn the page and the tide and become more congenial. I mean, there were still some dust ups and, some things that took place. But overall, we believed in the direction the company was going in terms of not only supporting human services in the community, but educating at promise youth, sending them to college. We believe that there was a good alignment. And yes, we have to make those decisions. And in the seat that I sit in today, it's a little bit more complicated because I work with lots of people of color led organizations that have some real apprehensions about working with certain companies due to corporate harms, particularly companies that contribute to and support the prison industrial complex. What do I mean by that? That leverage prison labor to produce their products and commodities. When you think about what's happening, in this whole, epidemic of mass incarceration and how it's impacting Black and brown men, if you're a Black and brown led serving organization, you may not want to take money from someone who's investing in something like the prison industrial complex, which is putting Black and brown men behind bars at alarming rates for decades.
Right.
So thank you for lifting that, Gail. Thank you for lifting that.
Absolutely. No, it's a really important consideration. And given how wide, everyone has almost everyone, I guess, has a phone, has a little computer, has a little computing device in their pockets. And, therefore people's complaints about, poorly designed or poorly thought through sponsorships can ricochet around a community and cause more damage. So you have to really, you have to be really thoughtful and careful about your partners. And, corporations are as equally thoughtful about who they're collaborating with too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. They will not gamble their reputation. We see it with folks getting canceled and celebrities. They're very deliberate about who they collaborate with, as should we as organizations be. And if you follow me, you'll appreciate that I encourage organizations, particularly those run by and serving people of color, to approach these partnerships, I'm getting tongue-tied, to approach building corporate partnerships and any other partnership with your shoulders square, sitting upright, because you have something remarkable that you're inviting a prospective partner to be a part of, right? The partner does not hold all the cards. I'm a firm believer that this has to work well for everybody. And I hate to see us in these orientations of, trying to, where it looks like we're trying to appease somebody. No, this is mission critical, life-changing, impactful work that we're doing. And it's work that we should feel good about doing, and do it with companies, partners that we feel good about working with. So I realize we went over, Gail. Thank you, good people out there listening, for your patience as we went over. In our parting, is there anything you want to share to button up and even tell the folks how to reach you, Gail?
Oh, sure. So anyone can be in touch with me at my email address is gail@gailbauer.com. It's spelled just like it is on the screen there, GAIL@GAILBOWER.com. You can check out my website, and on my website, there's a link to 2 blogs that I have. One is right there, gailbauer.com/blog. I think that's the address. And the other one is just about sponsorship, and it's called sponsorshipstrategist.com. And, follow me on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and, Kia and I are cooking up all kinds of other things too.
We are. Gail is the real deal, y'all. I'm not putting folks in front of y'all that I don't listen. Gail is the real deal. Okay. She knows her stuff. And, I'm a believer. I've seen her in action. So check her out. Thank you for tuning in to another segment of Winning Wednesdays. And just like that, we're out. See you next week.
Yeah, Coach Kia. What up? Talking about that good money. What we talking about? We talking about philanthropy. Coach Kia Kroon playing A, B, and a C. It's no fantasy, she can make it reality. Best in the field like a first-string athlete. Fundraising and marketing, she get tactical. Tackle your issues with a playbook so your cash can grow. She can show you just what to do. Coach Kia Kroon, when she touch down, it's a W. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. You an all-star, show me how the game go.